Governor Ducey, so good to see you again.
Great to see you, Jeannie. I just want to say thanks to Lisa and Alec and Ty. It's great to be back here. I love bragging about what we were able to accomplish in Arizona and on educational freedom and universal ESAs. It took all of 8 years. So I know there's some Arizona legislators here that helped get this done. I hope you'll stand up so we can all thank you as well.
Yeah, it's definitely not for the faint of heart, and I'll just say that watching you for those 8 years work to get that accomplished was pretty incredible. You stuck with it, you were bold. I cut my teeth around the same time that Alec was starting. I know, I don't look that old, thank you. And it was one of the first issues Alec had, and so state legislatures for 3 decades have been on this issue and even prior. And so I call what you did kind of phase 3 of the education freedom movement, right? We started in the in the late 80s, early 90s. They kicked off a little bit more in the 2000s. It was slow, and then boom, right after COVID, you were like, I'm not taking it anymore. How did you get it done? Like, how did that actually happen?
Well, I think this is the biggest opportunity at the state level across the nation. Jeannie, I'm proud that Arizona was the first state to pass this. But it reminds me a little bit of Roger Bannister and the 4-minute mile. Everybody thought that a 4-minute mile was impossible and it couldn't be done, but once Roger Bannister broke that barrier, thousands followed in the months and years right after that. 11 states have now done this across the country with universal educational savings accounts, with places like Tennessee and Texas on the 1-yard line. This is the #1 spending and investment level at the state arena. So I really encourage everyone out there that has a legislature and a willing governor to move this forward. We tried this in 2017. The voters weren't ready for it. It was referred to the ballot, and we were crushed 65-35 in the recall effort. COVID, if there was a silver lining, it was around school choice. Parents saw, so that window's open, and we must take advantage. We must have a sense of urgency. Parents saw the lack of rigor that was happening inside the schools. They saw some of the indoctrination, and we passed what was a minor reform in 2017 that turned into a universal reform for every Arizona family. Over 1.5 million families are eligible, and the other side wasn't even able to get the signatures to put this on the ballot. So the time is now, and the opportunity's in front of us.
It really is, and I think one of the things we have to drill down on, which I know you'll go into a lot more detail when you and Governor Reynolds, co-chairs of the Education Freedom Alliance, starting with Alec, really roll up your sleeves and get into this with the members here. But the point is that money following students, it's a really important point. One of the reasons that you are kind of safe, if you will, of course you're never safe from the opponents, but Arizona started the way and paved the way during its charter school movement and subsequently with the tax credit program and now, because money actually does really follow kids. It's not a new appropriation. So it's not difficult to make the case that we're taking money here and we're moving money over there. So speak to a little bit how that got accomplished and how that also flies in the face of this notion that somehow you're costing the taxpayers money.
So I really believe that the best politics is good policy. And I think we all knew that education, K-12, was flatlining since 1982. Yet if we looked at the reforms that we had made in Arizona around charter schools, we had 225,000 kids in 525 charter schools. If you took those kids, that was the #1 state in the nation for math, reading, science, American civics, etc. So we knew that choice worked. We knew we had a constituency to help build this. And the other thing, pulling out the partisanship of it, what you can do here is go above the government unions and go directly to the families. We'll have 100,000 families that will be using ESAs by this time next year. The current governor that actually ran on pulling this out, root and branch, do you think she wants to take this away from 100,000 families? I think we have the opportunity to be the parents' party at the state level if we do this right.
Couldn't agree more. And you know, you've shown that also, the increases in not just state test scores, proficiency levels, which is what matters, retention rates, the ability of kids going to career and college, all of that increased over that period of time, particularly among Black and Latino students. And that is a headline that we really have to embrace. I mean, you had Janelle Wood, head of the Black Mothers Forum, who started microschools in her basement during COVID. You accelerated that with funding. We came in and helped support her. You put her on the state board. And how do you deny that she's helping people?
Well, I want to tell the story of Janelle Wood. Janelle Wood led the Black Mothers Forum. And the first time she came to see me was in the summer of 2020 during the George Floyd riots. And Janelle was not happy. We had called out the National Guard and we had put out an 8 p.m. curfew. And she said that the kids under her charge were angry because they didn't feel they could have their voices heard. And I said, Janelle, that's not right. They can have their voices heard until 8 p.m. Then they can go home and get a good night's sleep and come back the next day and peacefully protest. And she said, Governor, I really wish we could find something we could agree on. And I asked her what she thought of school choice. And she said, tell me more. We spent a lot of time together between then and my next and last State of the State. But on that 8th State of the State, she was sitting next to Angela Ducey, the First Lady. I was at the podium and I was able to address our legislature saying that 50 years ago, politicians stood in the schoolhouse door and wouldn't let minorities in. Today, politicians stand in the schoolhouse door and won't let minorities out. These kids are trapped in failing public schools, and it's time to set these families free. Janelle Wood led the standing ovation. The African American pastors of Arizona whipped the votes. We were able to pass it thanks to a one-vote Republican majority in our House and our Senate, and not one Democrat voted yes. This is something I believe whose time has come. The best places and the first places to go are places where we have the House and the Senate and the governorship, but it won't be long until moms in Chicago and moms in Philadelphia and moms in LA say, why can't I have what Janelle Wood's children have? This is a winner.
And it shouldn't be partisan, it shouldn't be political. And you know, the first people that tell me that all the time when we go state to state is the Black pastors. And they'll say, what you're telling us is not what we've been hearing. But then I did it myself. And then I realized this was empowering. I realized this has nothing to do with the politics. You know, Howard Fuller, founder of the Milwaukee Choice Movement, used to say, I don't care where you're from, I will dance with whoever brings me, right? I just want the best for my kids. And this really is one of those few issues where there's crossover if we can just get below the party level.
And I'm thrilled that Kim Reynolds, who's a friend and a leader, we both were chairs in succession at the Republican Governors Association, is signed on for this, because there's a real battle ahead. In many ways, we shocked the left when we were able to pass this in Arizona. Since they had beaten us 65-35 in 2017, they thought there was no chance that we would have the courage to actually get this done at the legislative level. And then they were shocked when they couldn't get the signature. And now that we've seen it in 11 other states, if you think about it, those teachers or government unions are their leading force for what's happening on the left. And because they can't stop this, we're going to see real reform and parents joining this movement. We can really take this out of the partisan landscape, do great things for kids, and own the issue. Also, when you have 100,000 people that have signed up for this, you have a new constituency that you want to talk with and work with and organize around. So there's a lot of opportunity beyond this as well.
You know, speaking of Governor Reynolds, what is your advice for rural legislators who, right, it's a hard sell for them? How do you help them get over some of the concerns they're hearing?
We face that issue in Arizona to be certain. I mean, people talk a lot about Greater Phoenix and Maricopa County, and then of course we have Tucson and Pima, which is the second largest county, but the other 13 are considered rural counties. And this is something that animated my run for governor in 2014. I wanted universal school choice, and really some of the concern at the rural level in places like Arizona, and I've talked a lot with Greg Abbott about this in Texas. One, they're concerned about high school football and what happens with the possibility of competing institutions, and that's one you can easily overcome. And then the other one, and it's a very real concern, is oftentimes this school district is the #1 employer for that county. And I want you to know that that school district and that employment is not going to go away. If anything, you may have more growth or more option or more opportunities in that county, much like when you see the satellite arms of the community colleges making those investments there. So I think those are ones you have to overcome, but they are the knee-jerk first reaction. And if you look at the 11 states that have now passed that, you can get a lot other positive anecdotes on how you can demonstrate to rural leaders on why this is a good idea.
And is another area that rural legislators can embrace amidst the education choice argument innovation?
Innovation is really what's not being talked about right now. I think we're seeing all the Catholic schools and Christian schools and Hebrew schools and micro schools along with charter schools. These are all the things that we've already created. What we're not seeing are the 1,000 flowers that are going to bloom in the next decade with us using this technology to actually help tailor an education to a child, using AI in a way. Sal Khan talks about it. You can actually have Socrates as an individual tutor for each child, and we're still going to need good teachers at the front of the classroom to lead the charge, but we can let the strong students really run fast. And it's not that hard to teach the smartest kids in the room. It's hard to teach the kids that are stuck and don't get it. And that's where a teacher can make a huge difference, and that's where we can see a real return on investment in K-12 education. And wouldn't that be a welcome change given the last 30 years?
Yeah. And being able to reduce the regulatory environment, some more of that can happen. I mean, look, you've seen this happen all through Arizona. You've seen partnerships with innovative universities like Arizona State University. You've had blended models. You've had on-ground, online. I mean, districts can actually, dare I say it, make money with options like this, because not that that's the point, but they can bring more money in and more business in by opening up the landscape of even small communities to a hybrid learning, and many things happening. It's happening everywhere. It's happening in West Virginia. It's happening in so many states.
And there are leaders out there, even in the K-12 traditional public system. You can find them. They feel a lot more confident now because they've seen the defeat of the union in so many other places. So the folks that got into education for the right reasons, because they want to benefit children and they want to turn schools around, are people we should be reaching out to.
And didn't you also have public school educators and charter school educators and people who are homeschooling supporting the ESA?
We did. We had a very broad coalition. We started out with autistic kids, foster kids, and kids that lived on Native American reservations. And then we made the real age-old American argument. If it's good for them, why isn't it good for everyone? This, our great public schools in each of our states have excellent public schools. They are not going to go away. People don't want to flee them. But like Condoleezza Rice says, if you have wealth or prosperity, you have a choice. If you have the ability to move zip codes, you have a choice. If we believe in equality of opportunity in this country, shouldn't each of our citizens have a choice? And it really is our underserved and most vulnerable that are in the worst positions around this. So I think that we can find leaders in the community that care about education that will not be bullied by the unions.
And what about the Republican Party's new platform? My understanding is this is the first time universal education choice has been a priority. There's language about publicly funded options, empowering parents. How should lawmakers work in and around that? Is that a positive? It's a crazy political world out there. How do we navigate that? What do you think?
It can be a positive. I mean, I'm concerned whenever the federal government wants to do anything. I think the federal government tries to do too much and does most of it very poorly. I mean, why don't you guys just focus on a handful of things like protecting the nation, securing the border, reforming immigration, and getting the country's finances in order, and leave the rest to the states. We're pretty good at governing, aren't we? And we also know how to balance our budgets and pass a lot of good legislation, and you see very little gridlock. With all that said, whatever we can do to push that education out of D.C. and push it back to the states pro rata. Louis Brandeis called the states laboratories of democracy. And as a governor, I really embraced that. And we do want to compete against other states. Governors are still collegial. They're good communicators, but most of all, they're competitive. And Americans vote with their feet. And I know Al does a great job of demonstrating the map on where Americans are going, and they are going to our states. They are going to states with this good policy that we've put forward. And most Americans, even at the grocery store, know the best states in the nation for tax policy and who has low taxes. I think we're only a few years away from Americans knowing the best states in the nation for education policy and going to those states or demanding in the states they live in, why is this not available for my children?
And bald-faced promo for CER's Parent Power Index, on which Arizona is number 2 in everything, but you can see this. I mean, it's amazing to me. I mean, I used to have these things at the top of my head. I don't have them anymore because there are so many states that have so much that's happening, and it's happened, by the way, and I'm not just saying this come ALEC. I know many of you, I've worked with many of you. It is ALEC legislators who learn this stuff, take it back, and to your point, they're closest to the people, they're closest to the kids. Okay, final couple of seconds. So Education Freedom Alliance at ALEC, what's your prescription, what's your forecast for the future for those states? You're optimistic, but can we roll tide really quickly in the next couple of years, the next 12 months?
Well, my oldest son went to Ole Miss, so I can't say roll tide. But I will say it is time to act. And Jeannie listed all the partners that are here today. I'm leading up an organization called Citizens for Free Enterprise. It's around freedom, free enterprise, and educational freedom. I do think that the time is now. I think not only is this a winning opportunity, the ground has been softened, and there's a lot of leaders out there that want to help you as you head back to your state and get ready for January and the state of the state. I think that every forward-looking governor should have this in their state of the state address, and then you should get to work whipping the votes, passing this, and making your state a better place for every citizen and every child in which to live.
Governor Ducey, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.